Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hi, Tim. Good morning. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking your time. For taking your time to be here with me today.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks for having me, Jag.
It's a pleasure, Tim. Tim, from what I read about you and from what I saw about you on your social media pages, I know that today the thing that you're focusing on is helping people teach English to people from Asia, basically, making that a very lucrative career for them. But I'd love to get there as soon as possible. Before that, if you can walk us through your journey of how you got into the teaching profession and how did you end up teaching in countries outside of your own.
Sure, yeah. So I guess my teaching began when I was in Canada and I was getting my bachelor degrees and all that stuff and choosing a career. I went into classroom teaching and taught in the public schools in Canada. And, went the normal route of substitute teaching and then getting a contract job with the district in where I was living in Canada. And I taught there for a few years and ended up getting, because I was teaching kindergarten, so I was like very sought after being a male, teaching young students. So I got a permanent job right away. And everything was good until I heard about the possibility of teaching overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
And what exactly kind of attracted you to going overseas and teaching? Because when you're in when you're in the comfort of your own country and a lot of things, that too, moving from west to east to west is one thing. You're only going to a higher standard of living, but it need not have to be the same when people are moving from west to east. So
Right. I guess I met a teacher who had just gotten back from China,
right.
and I thought, geez, that sounds kind of interesting. Like my ideas of China were based on I don't know, like TV, movies, like
Right,
just
right.
people talking and things like that. I didn't know anything about China. And so I thought, oh, that's really neat. And she started showing pictures, talking about the school she was working at. And then she shared the opportunity that teachers could actually do this, keep their job, go overseas for a year. And I love to travel so much that I realized that I could combine teaching with traveling. I always kind of thought of this idea, but until you actually hear of a reputable way of doing it, it's a little bit scary. And also, you kind of, as a 20-something-year-old, you kind of feel like you need to follow like a predictable trajectory of like go to school, get a job, and that's it. The idea of like taking a break or like going overseas is sort of not very popular, especially where I was living.
Right.
So that's how I heard about it, and I got an opportunity to teach in Beijing, China for 1 year. Yeah, that was how it all started.
Great.
And I didn't really see it as like decreasing my standard of living or anything like that, because I learned how it could actually be an advantage to my teaching career by doing something like this.
Yeah, of course. There is reward with risk as well, or probably not risk in this case, but moving out of your comfort zone. But it's interesting because you said the things that you saw about China and TV and people talking about it. How different was it? What were the major um, changes that you saw? Oh, this is not what I thought China was. What are the things like that you experienced when you landed in China?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess I'll talk about what initially I thought, okay, when I talk about when I would share with people that I'm going to China, their initial reaction is like, are you going to be living in this like village somewhere? You're not going to have electricity, Wi-Fi and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I'm going to like a city that's pretty much almost bigger than Canada all put together. And the
Right.
development is like, really fast paced and everything. But so I started to change my ideas about China before I even got there, because I started learning about it, and that, I was living in a city, and there's, it's like progressive and like developing really fast. Actually, at that time, it was right after the 2008 Olympics. So it was changing really quickly. And I knew a lot of people that had done what I was about to do. When I landed, I was just completely overwhelmed. It was like, I guess specifically the language, um, just, yeah, I just didn't really, when you don't know anything about a place, you form your own ideas about it through the people that you've met in the past and things like that. So it was really eye opening in every angle, in every possible way. It was um, completely different than what I thought, and also just, yeah, exciting as well, all at the same time.
Got it, Tim. So, Tim, you said you lived in China for a year. What happened after that? Now you're in Bangkok, I believe, right?
Right. So I lived in. I ended up getting a teaching job, which was exactly teaching the exact same thing that I was teaching in Canada. It was a Canadian school. I had my contract held for a year, and then I said, "Hey, like, I want to stay a little bit longer. Can you extend it to 3 years?" So they did that for me, and then I taught at another school in Beijing. So I was there for a total of 3 years. And then after 3 years, I said, I want to stay like longer. Can you make it 5 years? And they said no. So I had to decide on staying overseas or going back to Canada. I decided to stay overseas, and I got a job in uh, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And so when you're in that international school circuit, it's like kind of easy to sort of move around, like and jump around to different countries. I was teaching in an international school, which is basically a schools around the world set up for children of expats that are working overseas. So these are not like local schools; they're
Right.
like international schools using U.S., British, Australian curricula. And yeah, there is a small percentage of wealthy locals that will go to the school, but predominantly it's children of expats and things like that. So yeah, that's what happened after 3 years in China. I spent 4 years teaching at an American school in Kuala Lumpur, and then I resigned and started working online in
I think
2017.
I think that's when you joined VIP Kid in 2017.
That's right. Yep, in 2018. Yep.
Great. And how did you manage the transition, Tim, from
Um, Well, I would say that at when I quit my job, I really just was looking for something to do online, and I wanted to take a year off initially. And then I kind of came across VIPKid. It kind of gave me everything that I wanted to do, like still teaching without all of the headaches of like admin and meetings and stuff, but also make a pretty good wage. Like I wouldn't say that it was anywhere close to what I was making in the school, but it was livable for Southeast
right?
Asia. Yeah. So I think that was like the appeal to it, is like I don't need to make as much money to still live pretty well and have more freedom and flexibility. And so yeah, the transition was pretty easy, but I struggled with things like missing the camaraderie of colleagues and the predictability of work and the consistency of income, because when you're doing things on your own, it's like, it's entirely up to you how much you work, how much effort and you put into it. So I guess I struggled with those things initially, but yeah, I've never really looked back, and I would, I don't want to go back to the school system per se, and I've, financially I've never needed to, so that's been good.
That's awesome.
Mm.
Tim, as much as we might be happy with the kind of money that we make for a certain place. I'm sure at
Mm.
some point you'd want to like rise up the ladder and then make more money for whatever reason it would be, right?
Right.
So did those thoughts occur to you while you were in VIP Kit? I mean, first few months or a year, you could have been like, okay, this is something that I can make do with. But
Right.
did you have plans? Okay, you know what? 1 year I'm going to do this, but in the future I need to figure out a way to kind of earn more, work less.
Right. So yeah, I would say that I knew that just teaching classes one on one during 3 hours a day wasn't really going to cut it long term, but it was so much fun. I'll have to say that it was like, okay, I could do this for a while. And I started to find new ways within the company and within what I was doing. I started to see like new avenues where I could make income.
Right.
And I became really successful at a few of those. Yeah. So it was, I started, okay, I can, my own efforts can translate to more money. And with the internet, there's no limit.
Wow. Okay. What are those
Yeah.
avenues that you're talking about apart from teaching?
Well, the first thing that came across me was an opportunity to recruit teachers. So they had like a affiliate referral type bonus.
Right.
Um, and I ended up making more money with recruiting than I was teaching.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot of recruiting for the company through my YouTube channel. So YouTube was like the first place, which then opened up the door to, okay, I can, through my YouTube channel, I can train teachers to get hired with the company, pass the interview. That was what it was. It was a YouTube channel to help teachers pass the VIPKid interview, essentially. That's how it
Right.
started.
Right.
And I was just getting so much engagement and so many people getting hired that it was doing really well. But then I also realized this is not sustainable because I'm building my house on someone else's property. Essentially, it's a good income, but at any point in time, they can pull that program, which they did. They did pull that program. Uh, Many people were making more money, I think, than their investors wanted to continue supporting. So yeah, so they pulled that, and fortunately, I had sort of built up a good audience on YouTube where I was able to kind of create other types of content, work for other companies, show other people that there's other ways to teach online besides just this one company.
Right.
So I started doing all those kinds of things, and eventually led into teaching on my own and creating some digital products for teachers as well to be able to learn how to make money online and things like that. So yeah, it was just a case of finding what I enjoyed doing and what was going to end up being kind of profitable in the end.
Got it, Tim. When you said they pulled out the program, you just meant the recruitment referral program, or the entire company as such was kind of
Right. Well, before, I mean, we can talk about what happened in China in 2021, but before that, they, one of the sort of cost reducing measures they took was to
right.
remove the referral program. Yeah. So they didn't remove it completely, but they removed a milestone portion of it, which is where I was making most of my income from. So that was like a huge financial loss
Right.
because I was recruiting a certain amount of teachers per quarter. Yeah, so they just slowly like they started kind of removing some of the benefits, and then it just became not as financially great to continue recruiting.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I did, learn that at some point VAP Kid completely shut down, and then a lot of teachers had to transition. Exactly where your idea comes into play. But before that, I'd like to touch upon just one topic: the policy change. What exactly happened in China that they had to shut down all of these things?
Sure. So we started hearing rumors of it in the middle of 2021, and basically, the government created a new policy that we call it the double reduction policy, where they forbade companies from hiring foreign teachers outside of China to
Right.
teach Chinese students inside of China. So there was a little bit of nuance with, okay, if you're in China, you could still teach online, but if you were outside of China, you couldn't. If you were over the age of whatever, you could still take online classes. And it kind of was a policy, I think, aimed at reducing the stress level of students outside of class, but also reducing the competitiveness and the financial burden that parents felt that they needed to provide for their kids with these extra tutoring classes. So, on the outset, like that sounds really good, right? Like those are things that you would want to happen. But I also kind of wonder if it's also a policy aimed at keeping the country very closed
Yeah.
and without so much influence, especially with U.S.-China relations now. So who knows? But that essentially is the policy, and a lot of companies had to shut down overnight. In fact, VIPKid did not shut down. They transitioned to being a global company with their headquarters based out of Singapore, but they still get mainly Chinese students. But they kind of try to have more of a global market. So there's a lot of exceptions. Some companies are still operating on a very small scale. A lot of them have, but essentially, the market crashed, and a lot of teachers lost their jobs in August of 2021.
So, what happened after August of 2021? How did you manage to kind of reinvent yourself?
Well, it was absolute panic. I mean, you can imagine hundreds of thousands of teachers teaching with these companies all of a sudden, lost their jobs or saw, huge reductions in their schedule and things like that. So, being in the position that I was with my YouTube channel and a lot of people reaching out to me for help and support through that transition, I decided to also show teachers of other ways that they could make money online, other ways that they could teach online with other companies. I sort of became a real resource for people during this time. And at the same time, I also transitioned to fully teaching my own students independently. And a lot of teachers wanted to do that, but they had, lots of questions, concerns, and just needed help navigating that. So that's where I kind of pivoted my content to helping teachers to do that. And that was also, a lot of people followed me through that process, from teaching with the company to teaching independently. And yeah, I've helped hundreds of teachers to build their own teaching business through that.
Got it, Tim. You said when VIP Kid was closing operations. Of course, now they're not. They're still open in another country. Uh,
Hmm.
at that point, you were only helping teachers to find other companies like VIP Kid, and then I think the transition was into building their own teaching business by finding clients. Right.
Yeah, I mean, because there are no companies that paid as well as VIPKid. There are some global companies, but they're going to pay like $10 an hour, things like that. And so while it was a good like um, transition opportunity for many, it's not really sustainable. And so I think a lot of teachers, even now, still want to get out of working for these low-paying companies that market to other countries. It's just not financially a sustainable model. So ultimately, I think everybody has that dream of being their own boss and creating their own schedule, teaching what they want, teaching who they want, and charging what they're worth, rather than charging what a company is dictating your worth.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how much was VIP Kid paying?
VIPKid was paying on the higher end. If you could kind of work their incentives, they were paying around $24 an hour. uh, at the lower end around 17 to $18 an hour.
Right.
Yeah, so somewhere around there. I was able to kind of teach at the higher end with their incentives, but that was basically what they were paying. Yeah.
Got it, Tim. Tim, now, coming to the point, where you set out to find your own students by your own efforts in China. Uh, First thing, do you, as like, if somebody is aspiring to do that, do they need to have any certificate in English training, or do they have to go get themselves trained somewhere? How does that work?
Well, it was always the case with companies that they needed to have some sort of a TEFL or TESOL certificate. But I would say when someone's doing this on their own, um, you know, it depends on the market. I would say Chinese families are very concerned with like your qualifications and your education, but really at the end of the day, it's about the results that you can provide for the students. So I don't say that you necessarily need to have some degree in teaching English, but having some certifications is only going to help you, right? Even in your own professional development, but it's also going to help you be more marketable. So at the basic level, I think a TESOL or a TEFL certificate is enough to get started. Um, And then again, with like the Chinese market, it can be help. It's they often want to know like what your degree is in and things like that if they're looking for teachers. So, you know, but I don't think that it's not impossible to get going in this if you don't have a lot of qualifications.
Have you helped teachers or people, who never had any certificate?
Yeah, I don't have like my own TESOL certificate that I provide, but I affiliate for different companies and I recommend different ones. And I've got some resources on, you know, what would be a good fit for you. Are you wanting to teach English overseas, like in a classroom, or are you wanting to teach online? Or are you, um, yeah, just depending on what you're doing. So there's lots of options out there. And some of them are pretty low cost as well. So you don't have to spend a fortune to get a certificate.
Oh, but you'd still, if people are coming to you, let's say,
Hmm.
hey, Tim, can you help me find my own students from China? Um, do you recommend them to go get a certificate, or you tell them it's okay, you can do it without a certificate as well?
No, I don't recommend that necessarily. No, but yeah, that's the first thing that somebody wants, right? They want, okay, I need a student. I usually say, okay, before you get that student, there's a lot of things you need to determine, and we talk about, determining your niche, who it is you actually want to teach, where does that student live, and then based on that, like, how are you going to create content to attract them to you so that you can build that know, like, and trust with them. So that's kind of like the starting point, I would say. And then there's a lot of things to get set up, like making decisions on your curriculum and your pricing and where you're going to what platform you're going to use and things like that. So it's more, I guess, more I come at the angle of, let's get everything set up, make you look really professional online, and then start targeting your student that way.
Got it, Tim.
Hmm.
Tim, you help people, find students overseas in general, right? In countries where English is not the native language. And what are the top countries that have the most demand for English teachers?
That's a good question. I would say, I mean, I mainly deal with the Chinese market, so I mainly kind of am living in that space. So
Okay,
I would say, definitely there's always, I believe, going even with the regulation, there's always going to be a demand for learning English with Chinese students. I've also heard there's like a rising market that's can be quite profitable in like the Middle East,
mhm,
places like that. Anywhere really, there's billions of students online wanting to learn English every day. So I think there's a place for everyone out there, and you don't have to just target the Chinese market. There's students out there everywhere.
got it, Tim. From
Mm.
what I saw when I was, looking, digging a little deeper into this, I learned that, in China, people are charging $40 to $50 an hour to teach English, and that seems to be the most lucrative at this point. Also, given the volume, right? I mean, you could be teaching somebody where they pay you $100 an hour, but consistently finding student, I think that's happening in that region of the world, China. Now, when you said it's important to know your niche and the target audience that you're looking for, so you're talking about target geography within China itself? Does it change within China itself from region to region, the way you can charge and what you teach and stuff?
Sure. I think if you okay, let's say somebody says, I want to teach Chinese students. Okay,
Right.
well, what are you wanting to teach, and what results can you provide? Because there's definitely more money to be had in, say, things like test preparation, um,
Right.
in preparation for students who are moving overseas. Maybe they want to go to college or university in the US or in the UK, things like that. So there's more profitable niches like the ones I just mentioned
Right.
versus, okay, I just want to teach general English to a average, English speaking level of a Chinese student. So, yes, within that market of China, there's lots of different niches that people could, maybe they want to teach adults, maybe they want to teach accent reduction, or maybe they want to teach business English, or maybe they want to teach TOEFL, IELTS preparation, or maybe they want to teach conversation. Like I know some teachers are very focused on helping the student improve in their conversation, right? So they don't really focus on a lot of other things
Right.
that you might find with just a general ESL teacher. And so they can be very targeted with that, like in their marketing and things like that. So yeah.
Right. That totally makes sense because
Mhm.
outcome is most important, right? Whether you're teaching
Mm.
somebody to have a general conversation or if somebody is moving to the US to do their higher education, and then it becomes a whole different thing.
Right.
Got it, Tim. So, Tim, what are the tools as far as, for teachers who are looking to get into the Chinese market and, start putting themselves out there? What are the tools that you're talking about here that they need to be familiar with?
Sure. So you mean in sort of terms of like how to actually do it, software, things like that? You mean, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's always like a difficult thing because fortunately, there's lots of options out there now. And through everything that happened a couple of years ago, there's been a lot of, small businesses rising up to sort of provide solutions for teachers,
right.
almost too many, like payment solutions and platform solutions and curriculum solutions and you name it. There's how to build a website, all kinds of stuff. So I would say I always advise teachers don't get confused with all the noise out there and just keep things really simple to get started. You don't have to spend a lot of money on equipment or tools or software. You can do things almost for free. But, of course, get yourself started and then invest in things that are going to make your job easier, and make life a little bit easier for you. So, I don't use Zoom to teach on. I use a professional classroom that gives me more tools to teach on. I use one called ClassIn, and so that is just allows me to come across more professional, have a better learning experience for my students, and yeah, it just makes life easier for me. So number one, figure out what platform you want to use to teach on. Number two, you need to find a curriculum that suits what you are wanting to teach. So there's lots of great options out there, pre-made, step-by-step kind of curriculum, free resources. Just choose something and go with it. And then you need to get paid as well. So how are you going to get paid? And that's usually the biggest struggle with the China market because of how closed off they are, with their like payment gateways and
Payment
stuff. So
gateways. Right.
yeah. So that's usually really tricky, and it can be a bit of a headache. When I had my first student 10 years ago, I had the mom went to the bank and, had to like wait there for hours, lots of paperwork to transfer the money. But now there's ways of getting money out faster. So yeah. And don't be afraid to invest in things like I said that are going to be help your classes be more engaging, and things like that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. It did. Uh, because I was asking you from, China being the country that it is, right? It's got a lot of restrictions and stuff.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could use tools that are normally used in other countries like Zoom and stuff.
Yeah, they do. And now, now China has changed a lot, and I think the current generation of young parents are more savvy with accessing content and things outside of China. So it's very commonplace now to see families using VPNs and things like that. 10 years ago, I would say it was like less common to see that.
Right.
So, and PayPal, like a lot of families are like kind of doing business overseas more than they were, even though China continues to try to make it more difficult. There are ways, but yeah. So they're pretty. It's you can make it work if you want to make it work. You can make it work.
Got it.
Mm.
Tim, I get a feeling, the country is always trying to kind of block things off. They're trying to make things difficult for people from other country to do business with them. With this
Right.
looming large, right, hovering over, How how easy it is to feel secure it is about the future, because I know you can only think about a month or two, but people are also planning long term, right?
Sure.
Is it easy, or people are always having a plan B when they're working with the Chinese market?
Yeah. Well, I always tell people that the old expression, never put all your eggs in one basket, right? So it's really important to diversify your income. And we learned that on a broad scale in 2021 when everything happened. But um, I feel quite safe with the Chinese market. However, yes, there's a lot of concern out there from many that, well, if this isn't allowed for companies, and why is it allowed for me? And am I really able to do this? What if they shut down my WeChat one day? What if they block the payments? What if? I mean, yeah, we can worry all day about the what ifs, but I think I encourage people not to get too concerned about it, because I think there's always going to be an opportunity there. But yes, diversify your income for sure. Um, Create other sources of income. Look at other markets. A lot of teachers are very interested in teaching students from other countries. I completely understand. There are, things are. I would never have thought that China would have done what they did in 2021 with the double reduction policy. It really took me by surprise. So anything's possible, Could they block foreigners from using WeChat? I think that's the most likely, and then that would be um, a disaster for teaching in that market. But
Okay.
so
WeChat
there's
is equivalent to WhatsApp for Chinese market?
yeah, I would call it an all-in-one app that is used for everything. So think
Okay.
of like payments, purchasing,
Okay.
everything like banking, yeah, communication, social
Oh,
media.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's sort of the all-in-one power app for everything. And so it's how they pay for everything. It's how they communicate. It's how we communicate as teachers with our students and their families. So it's not the only way, but it's the best way. If you want to be in that market, you need to be on there. Yeah.
Got it, Tim. Tim, the program that you run for people who are interested to teach, right?
Right.
So what are the exact kind of services that you provide?
Yeah. So I started out by offering coaching for teachers to answer questions, provide support, things like that. And then I turned that into a digital course that sort of walks somebody through um, the beginning stages right until getting up and running. Sort of all the decisions you have to make, tutorials on different options that are out there, a little bit on marketing, um, just kind of everything, kind of all wrapped up into a 5 module course. I used to run it live with like a cohort of teachers. So I used to have like 50 to 75 teachers in the group. And then I turned the course recently into like an evergreen course where people can purchase it at any time. And I run automated webinars to promote the course, essentially. So that's what it looks like right now. But yeah, as someone that wants to teach with the Chinese market, it's a good course for people to sort of get started, because a lot of teachers didn't go to school for business. They didn't go to school for
Yeah.
marketing and things like that. Like they went to school
Yes.
to be a teacher, so they don't have those skills necessarily. They have a lot of skills that they don't realize they have, but oftentimes marketing and business aren't like part of what they took in their teaching program.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they lack understanding in those areas oftentimes. So yeah, that's where I try to come in and provide support in that way.
You don't do live coaching anymore.
It's available, but I don't promote it too much. Yeah, I usually, because it's very, there's not a lot you can do in an hour. So I usually say, look, this is financially going to give you, this is going to help you more. And it's everything that I know and coach on inside the course. And it's almost more affordable than an hour with me, but I do offer it. It's available if people want to.
Got it, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, if somebody is starting out, right?
Mm,
Let's say, if they, purchase your course, and of
mm.
course, following everything that you've said, how long would it typically take for somebody to find their first set of students?
Right. So it it's not a great answer, but it really varies. But I try not to be too optimistic to say that you're going to have a student right away. It takes work. Many teachers come into the course already having students from platforms or from wherever. So
Oh,
I
right,
say
right.
it's great if you can have a couple of students already, but if you don't, then it's going to take longer. I would say if you've got a couple of students already, you could be up and running with everything going, and I would help you to grow that student base quickly. But the actual act of getting your very first student, it can take I would say if you wanted to put a number on it, I would say give yourself a good 3 months
Okay,
of consistency. I would say give yourself a few months. Yeah.
got it. And one of the things, when it comes to this market is the language, right? China. And there are a lot of communication involved. One is, when you have students and their parents talking to you before they take up your class, or
Right.
be it posting on social media. So, how important is the language itself, or you just continue to do everything in English?
Yeah. It's a good question because that's what a lot of people ask me. Oh, you teach Chinese students, so do you speak Chinese? And it's much easier to deal with the parents now in English than it was 10 years ago. I find I'm finding the parents of my students when I was teaching in China very different than 13 years later than the parents of the students that I'm teaching now. Really, really different. So I don't have any issues, in terms of communicating. The apps now provide, automatic translation. So you can almost like be communicating in your own language and have it translated. But also, they invest in English classes at a very young age for their students or for their children, sorry. So even the kids are coming into, English lessons with a pretty good base. So you certainly don't have to speak Chinese at all, but you need to understand how language is acquired and how to do this in an online environment, which is challenging, right? You have a 5-year-old that doesn't speak any English. How are you going to engage them and teach them? And so I think there's some skills in that someone needs to have, but you don't, language now. It's I think in all the students or all the potential students I've ever had, I've had one parent who said, um, I'll only take classes if you have a Chinese assistant to deal with like
Oh, right.
communication. Yeah,
Okay.
that was really unusual. I've never had that before. So
So, do you also cover these aspects? You said the skills that one would need to teach a 5-year-old Chinese kid, right?
yeah.
Do you also cover those things in your course?
In the independent teaching course, like it's called Launch Going Solo. That course I do not, but I have a free sort of I call it a boot camp course that helps teachers like get hired with companies, and I go over, yeah, like online teaching skills,
Right.
some sort of simple pedagogy around like teaching. But I believe that like good teachers are kind of born to be teachers, so you sort of have those skills. It's just sometimes a case of adapting them from in-person teaching to online. But if you're willing to learn and be a little flexible and try new things, then I don't think it's really much of an issue.
Got it, Tim. Tim, what do you think is the reason that, first of all, China as a country is so closed off, and then people in China are encouraging their kids to learn English? So, are
Hmm.
they all trying to move out of China? Is that the reason that they want to learn English?
I think English is just equated to opportunity for many, and there's also a keeping up with the neighbor type of mentality as well. So families are in constant competition in their education system in general to just keep up with, um, to keep up with uh, everyone in their community.
Right.
Um, I had a student just the other day actually who said, it's really stressful. She's a middle school student. She said it's really stressful now because the teacher sends out the class rankings every day of who's doing well, who's not doing well, who needs more support in English, who doesn't, things like that in a public way. I think that just really needs to change for the mentality to change around this kind of need to um, have this competitiveness. But yeah, so I think English is equated to opportunity. And for many, yeah, maybe they want their kids to study overseas, but
Right.
I think it's just seen as a way to get into a better school, to get a better job. And, everybody wants that. So
So China as a country in their schools teach English.
yeah, they do. That's right. Yep, they do. Yep.
Oh,
It's
okay.
they seek, having an English class with myself, a native speaker,
Right.
is going to be better than what they're getting in their school system for sure. But yeah, they do study English in school.
So some of the kids learn English to do better in their schools because they're not, like you said, the ranking and stuff like that to improve.
Yeah, it's just one of the subjects. Yeah, just like math or Chinese and things like that.
Got it, Tim.
Hmm.
Tim, I'm sure when people buy your courses, you may not interact with them and you may not know where they come from and stuff. But
Hmm.
when you did your live cohort, right, like 75 to 100 teachers,
Yeah,
what is the most, what's the background that they come from? What are the challenges that they usually face,
yeah.
and where is that
Well,
bridge?
95% are worked or are working for a company, and most of them are from uh, Western countries, mainly North America, and most of them are of an older age demographic, like
Mm, okay,
maybe yeah. I have a lot of teachers, maybe 50 plus that
right,
because I provide a lot of the sort of tutorial around the tech as well. I think that's what's really overwhelming for people is like, okay, when I worked with a company, I just log in and then like my camera pops up and away we go. But now I've got to like do this on my own. I've got to figure out Zoom or whatever, accept payments. I've never sold something to someone. So the idea of just, yeah, doing all of the tech stuff on their own is overwhelming. So I would say my demographic is like maybe 40-year-old to 60-year-old North American who worked with a company generally. Yeah. But I get all kinds of people that, don't fit into that as well. But yeah, people who just want some help.
got it, Tim. And
Hmm.
with respect to your own teaching, what's your path looking like now? Are you moving away from teaching and then trying to establish yourself as a full-time coach who's going to help more teachers, or are you still going to continue teaching a little bit?
Well, I guess good question. I always see the teaching part as like my stable, consistent income. And I'm always building the other things on the side. I would love for those things to be the consistent income, but I'm a little bit hesitant to give up the teaching because I think it's important to still be kind of doing what I'm teaching and doing what I'm helping others to do. But yeah, I guess the goal would be to do less of it, um, and to build up the other things more. It's just, I always tell teachers like you've got your A basket, your B basket. You should have your consistent income one and then your side projects or whatever you're doing on the side, but make sure that you have a stable income from something coming in. So for me that's always been my the classes that I teach. I can always count on those, um, and other things come and go up and down, as you probably know.
Got it, Tim. And typically,
Yeah.
how many hours do you teach in a day?
I just teach 2 hours a day,
Great. And is that 7 days a week?
5 days a week. Yeah. So I'm not really teaching a lot right now, but I could increase that if I wanted to. I would just have to just say, okay, I'm going to teach more. I used to teach 4 hours a day with VIPKid, so I was doing like 5 to 9 p.m., 4:30. Yeah, but it was a lot. I mean, you'd think 4 hours isn't very much, but it's 4 hours like sitting in front of a camera for, talking to like children. It's a lot. So I was getting a little burnt out with that. And then I built up this other source of income. I was able to decrease that. And then now I charge more than double what I was making with VIPKid. So I was able to decrease the hours of that. And, I want to have a comfortable lifestyle, and I like the freedom and flexibility. So yeah, but I can ramp it up if I want to, or ramp it down.
Got it, Tim. Tim,
Mm-hmm.
with the kind of ease with which you might be finding students, right? Because obviously you come with certain skills and experience. If not to the level of VIPKid, have you ever thought having your own company, where you could do stuff like those companies?
Yeah, I have thought about that, but I I don't know. I think I like being like a solo, what do you call it? Solopreneur, like
Sorry.
doing things on my own. Yeah, I do. I probably have the opportunity to do something large scale, but yeah, I think it's just I'm in my own way of doing it. Like
Right.
I would need to really get out of my own way and like open up to creating a team to do that. But sure, I mean, could it happen? Yeah. I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, just open up your own school. I want to work for you." But I don't know. Just seems like a lot at this point. Yeah, but yeah, good question. Maybe one day, the online teacher dude school.
but no, I totally, it would totally be against your purpose right now, right? I mean,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
all the free time that you have is going to go into
Yeah, that's right.
managing
Goodbye
and stuff
life.
like that, and you'll be like looking for someone else to take it over, and it's a
That's right.
never-ending cycle, actually.
Yeah.
Got it,
But
Tim. Tim, I think it's been great. Thank you so much. All the questions that I had was mainly around, what people can do, what are the best
yeah,
practices and stuff like that. You've given a
yeah,
fair idea as to what it is about. It's not as easy as it sounds. At the same time,
yeah,
I'd say from what I understood, if somebody wants to start off, it's, they got to keep aside 3 months and, do things consistently. And
yeah. And
when you
I
say,
would
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I would also add to that one of the things that I work mostly on with people is mindset. It's not so much that they're not capable of doing it or to getting this started, but it's really so much about mindset and so much about being, you know, in your own head about what you're capable of. And so I really coach people to, get rid of those limiting beliefs about themselves, because that is often the biggest stumbling block to moving forward. So I think a lot of people get that from me as well. It's just the coaching side of it, where I help them with their mindset. Because if you're someone that's listening to this and you're like, you really want to do something like this, but you feel stuck because of limiting beliefs or past experiences, past failures,
Right.
um, you know, work on that and try to really shift um, those mindset blocks so that you can start to see what's possible, and just work on small successes. It's not about starting your business. It's about making one small step forward to getting towards the finish line, to where you want to be. So, focus on just getting one thing done and taking one action step, because that is what just starts to fuel the fire to doing it. And then go back to remembering why you wanted to get started in doing this teaching business in the first place, and remind yourself of that. So I just wanted to add that, because I think that's like what people really struggle with.
Got it. So could you like give me an example of a limiting belief that people most commonly face?
A limiting belief that people most commonly face, I would say, um, I've tried things in the past, and everything I try to do, I fail. Right?
Right.
That's a
Right.
limiting belief. So instead, turn that around and say something like, okay, I'm a human, I make mistakes, but I'm capable of success. And if I do one thing today, then I can achieve that and do well at it. So it's just like kind of flipping that narrative, I guess.
Got
Yeah.
it, Jim. Great. Yeah. A lot of people, struggle with imposter syndromes, a lot
Yeah,
of
things
other
like that.
things, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, I think
imposter
it's got to
syndrome is big. Yeah.
mainly do with the mindset rather than uh,
Mm,
the steps exactly that is
mm,
needed. So
yeah.
the same steps, if you're doing with a different mindset, it's
Mm,
going to work. And
mm,
consistency. And okay, just one last question. You said consistently do things, right?
Yep.
When you say consistently do things, it's about not giving up. But what is that? Until you find that one student, what is that one activity that you got to keep doing consistently? Is it like posting on social media?
I would
Um,
say be consistent on showing up online in whatever way that looks like for your niche. Like if you're posting or making video or reaching out to contacts, like just do, it pays off if you just are consistent with it. That's how I built what I'm doing, is just by being consistent even when nobody was watching. Okay, I got to do this. I got to put this video out every week. And then finally it just started to like connect and grow. So yeah, just being consistent in your content, or whatever it is that whatever method you're taking to find students.
got it, Tim.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This I hope we can do part two sometime with
Yeah,
a
sure. Would
little
love
bit
to.
more
Thanks, Jag.
detail,
Mm.
and probably with some actionable steps for teachers who are looking at that, or a mini coaching session if you can
Mm.
have that as well, so that
Sure.
people can get a peep into what you can provide.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
although you say that you're not
Mm.
doing live now, you're
Yeah.
focusing on building a course and stuff. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
do you talk about the mindset thing in the in your course as well, or is
I
that
do. Yes. Yeah, I do. Yep. Yep. I do talk about mindset and goal setting. Mm-hmm.
good? Great,
Mm-hmm.
Tim. Thank you so much again, and
You're welcome, Jag. It's been a pleasure.
likewise, Tim.